I'm going to begin by quoting to you from an article by Ivan Petrasiewicz. The Zeptepi is now considered by some researchers as a historical fact. According to the pyramid texts, there was a period that emerged from the primordial chaos and the way gods ruled the earth. This period is called Zeptepi. Is this just another mythological tale, or can we find facts behind the Zeptepi? According to several researchers, among them Armando May, Zeptepi is a historical period that can be traced back to a specific date, 36,420 BC. The pyramid texts, the sum of the wall decorations and writings found in several Egyptian monuments, have left us most of the recorded history that speak of creation myths of ancient Egypt. Mysteriously, in all of these texts, a period of absence is described, and this period is called Zeptepi. For scholars, one of the most interesting documents is the Papyrus of Turin, or commonly referred to as the Papyrus of Kings, a document dating from the 19th dynasty of Egypt, which shows, in addition to the list of sovereign unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, the list of divine and semi-divine kings of Egypt's pre-dynastic period. Researchers believe that by calculating the decrypted information obtained from the Papyrus of Turin, we obtain the initial period referred to as the Kingdom of Ptah, Ptah, creator and first ruler of ancient Egypt, dating back to 39,000 years ago. The same source speaks of a time when the primordial gods reigned over Egypt for 20,000 years. After them, the demigods arrived. They were called the Followers of Horus. After them, mortal humans came to the throne of Egypt. These mortals began to rule over Egypt around the 4th millennium BC, with the dynasties of pharaohs we know today. So how should we interpret this information? Mainstream researchers tell us that most of that is just a myth, and it did not occur like it was described. Why? Because they believe it is not possible, since it contradicts mainstream beliefs. Egyptology and the official historiography tells us that everything to the pre-dynastic era is regarded as a myth, without much historical value. There are several researchers that believe there is more to this than meets the eye. Italian researcher Armando May dedicated his life to the study of pre-dynastic Egypt. In 2005, May conducted research on the Giza Plateau, culminating in the formulation of his theory of the historical dating of Zeptepi, presented at the International Conference on the Sciences of Antiquity held at the Zayed University in Dubai. Armando May explained that researchers have proposed several theories about the monuments of Giza, obtaining several hypotheses about the function of the monuments and the techniques adopted for their construction. Academic Egyptology has greatly contributed to our understanding of a unique and incomparable civilization that developed incredible technologies and advancements in their social, artistic, and scientific life. But for some reason, we still cannot understand how ancient Egyptians managed such incredible achievements thousands of years ago. May believes that one of the most important theories of the past 20 years in scientific terms is proposed by Robert Bauval, known today as the theory of Orion's correlation, according to which the pyramids of Giza are the projection on land of Orion's belt, which was possible to observe in the Egyptian sky in 10,450 BC. Even though this theory has been rejected from the beginning by academics, it has allowed the development of new research methods that have in part explained some of the mysteries related to the so-called pre-dynastic period. Together with Nico Moretto, Armando May developed an astronomical correlation analysis through the application of a mathematical model for the pyramids of Giza. According to these two researchers, the ancient Egyptian civilization originated in the year 36,900 BC, providing historical value to the descriptions of Zeptepi in texts such as the Papyrus of Turin. This ends the quotes from that article, and so now I say, based on what I have seen within the Akasha of Thoth, his streaming from the greater Akasha, the time of the first reparation began around 16,000 years ago and lasted 6,000 years. But let us look back before this. The Nephilim's agenda on this planet included genetic engineering of the then current human races. We know this last and most intrusive part was from what we are calling the Anunnaki. We know the gist of this from the Sumerian texts and other historical sources. Yet according to Thoth, the true purpose in its entirety is much more dimensional than creating slave labor for mining gold. It is a large topic and not central to this article that I'm reading to you from here. I mention it here, though, as it needs to be understood in looking at the Zeptepi within the Akasha, that both the Nephilim and the Star Lords, the Zeptepi from the Zeptepi period, came and went from this earth in the same period of time. It is also true that the Star Lords orchestrated the creation of this earth as helpers to the Elohim, long before the Nephilim arrived. If we go back to 39,000 years ago, we would find this to be before the actual Nephilim embedding on the planet Earth. An assortment of Nephilimic beings had cruised through and touched down and created interference with the human race before that time, but they had not yet to entrench themselves for the specific purpose that included serious genetic tampering with the human species. The implementation of this plan began around 25,000 years ago, continuing for 1,100 years. Yet the changes made in the human race spawned a drastically altered timeline, which was not adjusted until the first reparation around 16,000 years ago. Even today, however, we are still not what we were as a species before the genetic tampering. Now, I'm going to pause in my reading for a moment. This first reparation was addressed in a previous video, but very briefly, it is the time when the ultra beings, the Star Lords, came back to Earth and helped to repair the genetic and the earth damage that had been done. Obviously, they cannot repair it all. We still carry some of that with us, both in our genes and in our planet, but they greatly made a difference. If they had not come back, we would not be here now. So to continue. So let us see how the Zeptepi myth aligns with the presence of the Sun Lords in what is now Egypt. First, we must bear in mind that the Sun Lords were not abiding solely in Egypt, but throughout the earth. The Middle East and African continent was a primary area for them, however, as it was for the Nephilim, or in this instance, what we are calling the Anunnaki. The location of Egypt was chosen for the temple complex of the Risen One for various reasons. Major was astronomical placement on the planet. And of course, the temple of the complex of the Risen One is the Pyramid of Giza and its complex of pyramids. So it was in Egypt that the Star Lords set up a dynasty, not to rule over people, but to instruct and protect, to create a human star race that would continue a knowledgeable lineage of presence on the earth. The Nephilim Anunnaki embedding made this plan difficult to continue. There were the Nephilim Wars, which the Star Lords took no part of. These wars were between two, by then, divided factions of the Nephilim Anunnaki, one wishing to continue the status quo on Earth, and the other wishing to end it and free Earth's humanity. While the latter bore the same wish as the Star Lords, they were willing to use force to achieve this freedom, which included recruiting sections of human populace to the cause. These Star Lords were of a higher spiritual awareness and realized that force was not the answer for a long-term solution. So when the wars began, the Star Lords departed, leaving in their stead the followers of Horus to continue as best they could in guiding the higher true purpose of the planet Earth. The followers of Horus were offspring of those humans who still carried undiluted original Earth genetics, who had willingly borne children from the Star Lord Solarians. Solarian is a Thothic term for all the star races directly related to original human genetics. So the followers of Horus are these offspring. Throughout the period of the Nephilim occupation and resultant wars, first the Star Lords and then the followers of Horus managed to keep a region of the earth safe from Nephilim intrusion. This was not done through any oppositional action, but through vibrational attunement. And now we take a look at Mars and its role in this. The planet Mars was an outpost for the Solarians. It was given the proper environment artificially to sustain life. There were Star Lords. There the Star Lords first created their complexes to oversee the Greater Earth Project. When the Nephilimic Wars began, so most of the Star Lords retreated back to Mars. Some entered into the inner domain of Earth. They would return for the first reparation several thousand years later. On the planet Mars were established what Thoth is calling the Abode of the Zeptepi. It was here that the Star Lords lived and maintained a thresholding to the greater realms. This abode is now within the planet Mars, no longer on its surface. Yet the outer pyramids and complexes remain in various locations on the planet. Some of these still contain an operational active interior. One of these is the pyramid containing the holographic interface with the Metatron dweller crystal skulls. The Zeptepi have not entirely left our vibrational realm. Now here I want to say, they're calling, the Egyptologists are calling Zeptepi a period of time, but Thoth starts calling them the actual beings. So that can be a little bit confusing, so I'm just going to point that out here. So I'm going to say here rather the Zeptepi Star Lords, the Star Lords of the Zeptepi, have not entirely left our vibrational realm, for the Martian planet, as we see it, is where they continue to have a presence, as well as its moons and our moon. As always, the Nephilim shows up in these planets' moons as well. In a later period, they would attempt to utterly destroy the abode of the Zeptepi on Mars, but they were not entirely successful. Unfortunately, the Nephilim, the myriad assortment of them, also maintain a presence on Earth. It is important to understand that there is Mars as we see it in our vibrational field, and the planet Mars in its true vibrational field. And that is simplifying it, as there are many vibrational fields for each rotating body we call planets and stars. That concludes the article which I wrote several years ago. So this brings us up to now, 2021, and how it relates to where we are on this planet and what is going on now. I think some of it is self-evident. We are still involved in a kind of war on an internal perspective, a vibrational perspective, not so much with the Anunnaki. That particular crowd, according to Thoth, left for now. But the Nephilim in general, there are a lot of different factions of them, and also the Archonic cloud, which is that viral cosmic cloud of miasm that we have attracted to this planet, that creates all of this, all the inroads to these infractions. Without the Archonic cloud presence in our space and literally in our being, we would not have been able to have been penetrated by the Anunnaki or any of those factors. So here we are, and we're sitting in this cloud now. But there is a light, as Thoth likes to say, beyond the tunnel, and that is that we are now receiving the final reparation from the Star Lords. They have returned for that. We say return. Well, where are they? They are orchestrating from Mars, from the inner Earth, from their stellar Abode ships, the giant ones. They're here, and they're helping us to repair the last stage so that we can shake off this miasm and move into the Pyramidus Radius matrix, that consciousness spectrum that allows us then to move from a world system 1 to a world system 2, in which we take the planetary genius of this planet Earth into that new system, and it becomes the new Earth star. In a sense, we are still the companions, or as Thoth also calls them, the followers of Horus, because in our genetics we still have that star component, and not the one that was embedded from the Anunnaki, which is also present in our genetics, but the stronger field, the more definitive, powerful spiritual field of that which the Star Lords left us in the embodiment of the companions or followers of Horus. This is a powerful, potent energy, and we have the ability to expand it and to use it in a very integrous manner. So when we look upon the human race in general, there's a lot of disintegrity going on. So it is up to us to separate that true vibration out from the morass of the lower field and all the chaos that is going on beneath the waves. We're going to become the ultimate Mayan surfers and surf beyond, above that conflagration of fear, anger, and ignorance. So how do we do that? Well, that is a larger picture. But essentially, we must become the vibration that is the cutting knife that cuts through the murkiness and finds the true current, the true light frequency. And we don't have to be perfect to do this, but we do have to be discerning and find in ourselves the vibration we wish to perpetuate, the reality we wish to create. I have quoted this on my videos before, but it bears repeating again and again, I believe. And this is something Thoth gave me that I believe is at the core of what we are about now in this period of time in our lives and in the space continuum that we exist within. We live in a multidimensional existence and must each choose where to place our focus and intent. It is no longer about embracing a belief system, but becoming a register of cosmic force that focuses on a streaming of purposeful design.